to Mr. Brannen.
Thank you, Chair. Just to make a suggestion into the debate, and I'm going to start with Nelson Mandela, which may seem a very strange place to start. I used to work for the British anti-apartheid movement, and we used the figure of Nelson Mandela as a way into a wider debate to point out to the British public that there were many political prisoners in South Africa, not just one political prisoner. And it was in many ways a successful way to open up a public debate. You could use the individual figure of Mandela with which people could identify and then use it to point out that he wasn't the only political prisoner, there were many others. And I think we've kind of got the possibility here to use the largest species. In my case, it's the debate in the northeast of England as to whether or not to reintroduce the European wildcat to Kielder Forest. The European wildcat is extinct in the United Kingdom. There is a debate about reintroducing it. The proposed location is on the Scottish border in the northeast of England in Kielder Forest. But as Mr. Grabandi pointed out correctly, this really should be a debate about restoring biodiversity in its widest sense. And I think we can use the wolf in certain parts of the European Union, the wildcat in others, as the lead species which the public can identify, and from an educational point of view you can then use the fact that the reintroduction of the wildcat is not just about a top-end mammal, it's also about the wider issue of biodiversity. So I think there is an opportunity from an educational point of view. That's not to say that there isn't, in each case where there is an introduction of a predator proposed, that you then do end up with a very valid debate between on the farming community on one side and naturalists on the other. And I think as politicians we have a job in bridging that debate to make sure that both sides are able to put forward their arguments. Certainly the case that farmers in the northeast of England are worried about the impact on the sheep community of reintroducing the wildcat. On the other hand, we have an explosion of deer in the northeast of England, and to reintroduce a predator who would take out some of the weaker deer from a Darwinian point of view would maybe be no bad thing, because at the moment we're having to pay to have them killed by marksmen, and in many ways it would be better if they were taken out by a predator, because the predator would prey on the weaker deer, and it's very difficult for a marksman to take out the weaker deer as opposed to the healthier deer. Animals such as the wildcat can do that instinctively. And the deer are at the moment taking the tops off newly planted trees in Kielder Forest. So when the trees are replanted, from a forester's point of view, along come the deer, particularly in the early morning, and nip the top off the top of the tree, which has just been planted, which is the tastiest part, apparently, from a deer's point of view, and that will stunt the growth of the tree, hence the need to employ the marksman. So there's a case for reintroducing them. There's a case against reintroducing them in the northeast of England. I'm very well aware of the fact that there's arguments on both sides, but that debate about reintroducing the wildcat is a way in to opening up a wider debate with the public in the northeast of England, the public in the UK and the public across the European Union about the need to re-establish a wider biodiversity which we have lost over the last 30 years. Thanks.